Here's the uncomfortable paradox most people miss. The more advanced a society claims to be, the harder it seems to build anything real. California's high-speed rail isn't just a failed train, it's a mirror. A $128 billion mirage sold as progress, now stuck between hubris and insolvency, quietly rotting into a concrete tomb while everyone pretends it's still under construction. What makes this story dangerous isn't the money alone, it's the mindset. The belief that throwing more capital at a broken system will somehow reverse entropy. We're told it's temporary, that it's normal, that this is the cost of ambition. But what if this project isn't a bold risk at all? What if it's a textbook case of architectural arrogance, systemic failure, and the sunk cost fallacy playing out on a continental scale? If you've ever stayed in a bad investment, a draining job, or a collapsing relationship because you'd already put too much into it, this story is about you. This isn't infrastructure. Content. It's a lesson about decision-making, denial, and how smart societies slowly talk themselves into mathematical ruin. And once you see it clearly, you can't unsee it. Because this train doesn't just go nowhere, it shows exactly how powerful systems decay and how to spot the warning signs before your own life, finances, or ambitions turn into a hollow house of cards. The mentor would start by saying, look, physics doesn't negotiate. California tried anyway. High-speed rail demands gentle curves and predictable terrain. But the state's geography is anything but polite. Mountains shift, faults breathe, and entropy always wins. What was sold as progress slowly became a concrete tomb in the making, a house of cards built on architectural arrogance and political hubris. Then comes the Tehachapi Wall, where reality really dug its heels in. Drilling through seismically active mountains turned the project into a logistical nightmare, a slow hemorrhage of time and money. Every borehole revealed corrosion risks, structural fatigue, and the quiet threat of cascading failure. It's like buying a sports car and realizing your driveway is a spiral staircase. Beautiful idea, mathematically ruined. Next, eminent domain turned into eminent despair. Suing over 4,000 landowners created a legal industrial wasteland, a red ledger bleeding cash year after year. Each lawsuit froze momentum, turning liquidity into a mirage and progress into a dormant promise. If you've ever delayed a hard decision in your own life, investments, health, career, you've seen this movie, negligence disguised as patience. And finally, politics bent the tracks. To win votes, routes were curved through towns that never made physical sense, making true high-speed uninhabitable by design. Now, the Central Valley is dotted with isolated bridges, a concrete archipelago standing hollow and unconnected. They look impressive, sure, but like a Potemkin village, they hint at a deeper systemic failure that quietly sets the stage for the financial autopsy ahead. A seasoned mentor always starts with the numbers, not the speeches. Back in 2008, this project was born from a polished lie. A $33 billion price tag sold as a calculated risk. But let's be honest, anyone fluent in basic math could see the insolvency baked in. From day one, it was an asset liability masquerading as vision, a money pit camouflaged by optimism and political vanity. Before a single rail touched the ground, billions vanished into the consultant industrial complex. Lawyers, environmental reviews, project managers. Soft costs ballooned while tangible progress stayed dormant. This is a practical life lesson. Whether it's a business, an investment, or even a career move, when overhead grows faster than output, decay has already begun. The balance sheet just hasn't confessed yet. So here's the real invitation this story leaves on the table. Forget the train for a moment and look at your own decisions. Where are you doubling down? on something that's clearly decaying just because you've already invested time, money, or pride? Where has momentum replaced logic and habit replaced strategy? Awareness is the first escape hatch from systemic failure, personal or institutional. The mentor's lesson is simple but uncomfortable. Progress isn't about spending more, it's about choosing better. Read books that sharpen your judgment, like The Black Swan by Nassim Taleb or Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Question: narratives that sound noble but dodge math. In your finances, avoid money pits. In your career, don't build vanity projects. In life, know when persistence turns into quiet hemorrhage. Ask yourself, what would change if you stopped confusing effort with wisdom? If you cut losses early, redirected energy, and made decisions rooted in reality instead of mirages? Growth often starts the moment we stop defending past choices and start designing future ones with clarity. If this breakdown challenged the way you see progress, power, and responsibility, then don't stop here. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you keep learning how big systems fail and how you can stay ahead of that curve in your own life. The next insight might save you years. Then comes the psychological trap that keeps the machine running, the sunk cost fallacy. The logic sounds familiar. We've already spent too much to stop now. Governments fall for it the same way individuals do. Bad stocks, failing. Relationships, doomed projects. The wise move is knowing when persistence becomes hemorrhage, when discipline means walking away before hyperinflation eats what's left. Finally, the real cost hides in opportunity entropy. With $128 billion, California could have built nuclear plants, desalination systems, or massive housing infrastructure. Instead, capital flight continues quietly, and the red ledger keeps growing. Every dollar locked here narrows the future, setting up a liquidity crisis that bleeds far beyond transportation. A mentor might say this gently: when everything takes forever, the system isn't careful. It's broken. The CEQA regulatory maze turned environmental protection into a legal weapon, spawning endless lawsuits and inflation loops. What should safeguard progress now guarantees delay, a textbook case of systemic failure driven by good intentions and poor design. Labor rules and Buy American mandates add another layer of strain. Noble on paper, devastating in practice. Costs soar up to 400% compared to France or Japan, turning infrastructure into mathematical ruin. The takeaway applies everywhere. When rules ignore reality, productivity collapses. Businesses fail the same way nations do, slowly, expensively, and with plenty of paperwork. Then there's the so-called train-to-nowhere strategy. Building the Merced to Bakersfield segment first wasn't incompetence. It was politics. A vanity project designed to secure federal grants before deadlines expired. It looks like motion, but it's motion without direction. Classic Potemkin village economics. At the core lies institutional hubris. Ignoring existing freight rail networks to build from scratch on the most expensive land in the country was architectural arrogance at its finest. Anyone who's launched a startup knows this pain. Reinventing infrastructure you could have leveraged is how dreams turn hollow. And that arrogance quietly steers the story toward a future ghost city waiting just ahead. A wise mentor looks forward, not to predict but to recognize patterns. Even if this train is somehow finished, the math doesn't blink. Ticket prices high enough to break even would exceed airfare, locking the system into permanent subsidies. That's the subsidy trap, when a project survives not on value but on denial, turning taxpayers into silent guarantors of a failing bet. Then comes the quiet enemy, structural fatigue. Concrete left baking in desert heat, steel exposed to corrosion. Systems sitting dormant for years before use. Infrastructure isn't wine, it doesn't age well. Anyone who's let a house sit empty knows this truth. Neglect accelerates decay, and by opening day, parts of the system are already obsolete. The deeper wound is sovereign debt. Bonds issued today will be repaid by citizens not yet born, squeezing future budgets into a permanent liquidity crisis. Schools, healthcare, disaster response, all competing with yesterday's hubris. This is how a single project becomes a generational asset liability, slowly bleeding flexibility from an entire economy. So the final question hangs heavy. Do you leave it as a concrete tomb, a warning carved into the landscape, or throw another $100 billion at a white elephant? Every leader eventually faces this moment, double down on a mistake, or absorb the loss and change course. And that question, uncomfortable as it is, doesn't end with trains. It follows us straight into how societies choose their future.